The cup was placed on the counter with a sound too soft to be called a slam, yet too hard to be considered gentle. It was a precise, deliberate placement of ceramic on polished granite, an act of punctuation. A simple black coffee, Catherine said, her voice a low, melodious instrument of condescension. It really shouldn't be this difficult. She did not look at the young woman behind the counter. Her gaze was fixed on her own reflection in the gleaming chrome of the espresso machine, adjusting the collar of a beige coat that looked more expensive than the machine itself. The man beside her, Mr. Kwan, remained silent. He offered a tight, apologetic smile that did not reach his eyes, a gesture meant not for the barista, but for the half-dozen junior analysts in line behind them who had suddenly found reasons to be intensely interested in their phones. The air in the corporate lobby cafe had gone still. Keyboards had stopped clicking. The low hum of the building's ventilation seemed to grow louder in the vacuum. Anna, the barista, did not react. She wore a simple black collared shirt and a long, crimson apron tied neatly at her back, a uniform that rendered her anonymous. She met Mr. Kwan's fleeting glance with a placid emptiness that gave him nothing to hold on to, then her eyes moved back to the cup. She pushed it a final inch forward, into the designated pickup zone. "Enjoy your coffee," she said, her voice even and utterly devoid of inflection. Catherine picked it up without a word, turning with a fluid motion that caused her long coat to swirl around her ankles. As she and Mr. Kwan walked away, their quiet conversation a murmur of presumed importance, Anna reached under the counter. She pulled out a small, black, hardbound notebook and a pen. She uncapped it with a quiet click and made a brief, neat entry on a fresh page. She did not write down the order, or the complaint. She wrote down the date, the time, and 2 names. Then she looked up at the next person in line. "Hi," she said, her expression unchanged. "What can I get for you?" The cafe, the daily grind, was a strategic anomaly. It was not a franchise, but a bespoke operation owned and managed by K Global Holdings, the very entity that occupied all 48 floors of the steel and glass tower above it. Its purpose was not profit, but observation. It was the building's town square, a neutral ground where hierarchies briefly dissolved over lattes and croissants. Anna had learned more about the company's internal dynamics in 3 weeks of steaming milk than she had in 2 years of reading quarterly reports. She knew which teams were under pressure by the number of quadruple-shot espressos they ordered before 9 a, and she knew which executives were respected by the way their assistants spoke to them, and which were feared by the way they spoke to their assistants. She saw alliances form and crumble in the shared moments of waiting for a mobile order. Mr. Kwan was a rising star, the frontrunner to lead the company's massive North American expansion. He was sharp, impeccably dressed, and possessed a charisma that seemed to function only when aimed at those who could advance his career. With Catherine on his arm, he projected an aura of complete, unassailable success. Catherine, for her part, performed the role of a modern-day consort with theatrical precision. Her presence was a constant declaration of status, her interactions with service staff a carefully calibrated display of dominance. Anna saw how she never made eye contact, how she used vague hand gestures instead of words, how she left a crumpled napkin on the counter as if a trash receptacle was beneath her notice. These were small things, but they were not insignificant. During the lulls in service, Anna would wipe down counters, restock lids, and watch. Her gaze often fell on Hector, the building's daytime maintenance chief. He was a man in his late 50s, with a quiet dignity that seemed to make him invisible to most of the building's occupants. He moved through the lobby with a slow, deliberate grace, polishing brass fixtures and emptying waste bins, his presence as constant and as overlooked as the air itself. He and Anna had a silent understanding. A nod in the morning. A shared glance when someone left a mess. He was the only person who had asked her name on her first day, and the only one who used it. The second visit came 4 days later. It was the afternoon rush, and the line snaked back toward the lobby's main entrance. Catherine and Mr. Kwan bypassed it, walking directly to the mobile pickup area where an order under his name was waiting. Anna had placed the 2 cups carefully in a cardboard carrier. Catherine picked it up, and as she turned, she seemed to stumble. The carrier tilted, and a full cup of hot coffee cascaded onto the floor, splashing across the pristine white tiles and narrowly missing Anna's shoes. A collective gasp rippled through the line. "Oh, for heaven's sake," Catherine sighed, looking down at the mess with profound irritation, as if the floor had personally offended her. She looked at Anna. "You really should be more careful where you place these things. It's a hazard." The accusation hung in the air, thick and absurd. Mr. Kwan was already dabbing at a small drop on his trousers with a napkin, his face a mask of weary impatience. He said nothing to defend Anna, nor to correct Catherine. His silence was an endorsement. Before Anna could even reach for the roll of paper towels kept for spills, Hector was there. He appeared from the service corridor as if summoned, a mop and a yellow, wet floor sign in his hands. He didn't speak to Catherine or Mr. Kwan. He didn't even look at them. He simply knelt, placed the sign, and began to clean the spill with efficient, practiced motions. His intervention was so swift and silent that it was more powerful than any verbal confrontation. He created a small zone of quiet competence that starkly highlighted the childishness of the scene. Catherine watched him for a moment, her lips pursed, then turned on her heel and walked away. Mr. Kwan followed a half-step behind, after a final, unreadable glance at Anna. The line of customers began to move again, the moment passing into the building's unwritten history. Anna watched Hector finish his work. He wrung out the mop head, collected his sign, and gave her a single, brief nod before disappearing back into the corridor. She turned back to her station, took out the black notebook, and made another entry beneath the first one. She underlined Hector's name twice. The name on her birth certificate was Anna Park, the man who had founded K Global Holdings from the ashes of a post-war textile business, was her father. The current chairman, who had inherited the empire, was her older brother, Min-jun. To the world, Anna had left the family business years ago to pursue a quiet life as an art historian in America. This was a convenient fiction. In reality, she was her brother's most trusted advisor, his eyes and ears, the one person whose judgment he trusted implicitly. She was the final, hidden step in the company's most critical vetting processes. Mr. Kwan was, on paper, the perfect candidate to helm the new $5 billion North American division. His resume was flawless, his profit margins legendary. But Min-jun had heard whispers, faint but persistent, about a certain arrogance, a callousness that was carefully hidden from superiors. He believed that a man's true character was not revealed in the boardroom, but in the small, unguarded moments of daily life. It was revealed in how he treated the people he believed did not matter. So he had sent Anna. The barista position was her invention. It offered a vantage point of unparalleled clarity. Here, she was not Anna Park, heir to a global conglomerate. She was a nameless face in a red apron, a functional part of the scenery, easily dismissed and utterly ignored. This invisibility was her greatest asset. She had been warned about Mr. Kwan's relationship with Catherine. It was a known liability, a lapse in discretion that worried the more conservative board members. But Anna was less concerned with the affair itself than with what it revealed. She watched him permit Catherine's casual cruelties, his complicity a damning testament to a profound weakness of character. He was a man who would trade his dignity for the approval of a beautiful woman, and who would allow the powerless to be mistreated to avoid a moment of personal discomfort. That also told her something. The notebook was her report. Each entry was a data point, a piece of a mosaic that was slowly, inexorably, revealing the full picture of the man who wanted to control a continent's worth of their family's legacy. Her time here was not an act. It was an audit of a man's soul. The third incident was the worst. It was a Friday afternoon, and a palpable sense of weekend relief was settling over the lobby. Catherine arrived alone, her face tight with an anger that seemed to be looking for a target. The target, by sheer misfortune, was David. He was a summer intern from a local university, barely 20 years old, assigned to the cafe to help with the summer rush. His primary sin was his youth, a nervous energy that made him eager to please and prone to fumbling under pressure. Catherine ordered a ridiculously complex drink. A string of modifications and special requests rattled off so quickly that David had to ask her to repeat it. This was the opening she had been waiting for. "Is it that hard to listen?" she asked, her voice dangerously sweet. "Or do they just not train you properly here?" David's face flushed a deep, painful red. He stammered an apology and began working on the drink, his hands trembling slightly. Every person in the vicinity could feel the humiliation radiating from the young man. They stared at their laptops, at the floor, at anything but the scene unfolding at the counter. Anna, who was restocking the pastry case, went very still. She was about to intervene when another voice cut through the tension. It was quiet, yet it carried the weight of authority. Ma'am, Hector was standing not 10 feet away, polishing a brass railing on the lobby's grand staircase. He held the polishing cloth in his hand, his posture relaxed, but his eyes fixed on Catherine. The young man is new. Please be patient, it was not a request. It was a statement of fact, a gentle but firm correction from a man who had earned the right to speak. For a moment, Catherine was speechless. She looked Hector up and down, a flicker of disbelief in her eyes that a janitor would dare to address her. She let out a short, sharp laugh of contempt. I'm sorry, were you talking to me? But the spell was broken. The focused beam of her cruelty had been diffused. Hector simply held her gaze, his expression calm. The moment stretched. Anna stepped forward. I'll take care of this, David, she said softly. She took the cup from his shaking hands and remade the drink herself, her movements swift and certain. She placed the finished product on the counter, without looking at Catherine. Here's your beverage. Catherine snatched it and left without another word. As the lobby's ambient noise slowly returned to normal, Anna's eyes met Hector's over the heads of the customers. He gave her the slightest of nods, then returned to his polishing. Anna opened her notebook. She wrote down David's name, and then she drew a star next to Hector's. Her assessment was complete. The email arrived in every K-Global inbox on Monday morning at precisely 9:01 a.m., and the subject line was stark. Mandatory Executive Leadership Meeting and Announcement. North American Division. The body of the email was brief, summoning all senior vice presidents and department heads to the main boardroom on the 48th floor at 3 p.m. sharp. Attendance was not optional. In his corner office overlooking the city, Mr. Kwan read the email and a slow, triumphant smile spread across his face. This was it. The culmination of years of work, of strategic maneuvering, of quiet ambition. He forwarded the email to Catherine with a single word. Tonight, she replied almost instantly with a string of champagne bottle emojis. They made a reservation at the most expensive restaurant in the city, a place where a table had to be booked months in advance. He spent the rest of the day accepting premature, whispered congratulations from his colleagues, projecting an air of magnanimous humility that he did not feel. His victory felt preordained, a simple matter of cosmic justice. He never once thought about the woman in the red apron. Downstairs, the morning rush at the daily grind was a flurry of activity. Anna worked with her usual quiet efficiency, her movements economical and precise. No one noticed that she brewed an extra pot of the dark roast, or that she set aside the last of the almond croissants. At 2 p.m., she served her final customer. She wiped down the stainless steel counters one last time, untied the crimson apron, and folded it into a neat square. She left it on the counter in the back room. She walked out of the cafe, not through the main lobby entrance, but through the employee door that led to the service corridors. She walked past the loading docks and the cavernous laundry rooms, emerging at the private service elevator bank. She pressed the button for the 48th floor. The door slid shut, and she began her ascent. The uniform of her invisibility was shed. The time for observation was over. The boardroom on the 48th floor was a testament to understated power. A single slab of black marble formed a table that could seat 30, surrounded by chairs of soft gray leather. One entire wall was a sheet of glass, offering a panoramic view of the city sprawling below. The executives filed in, their voices a low, respectful murmur. They took their usual seats, a silent affirmation of the established pecking order. Mr. Kwan entered at 2:55 p.m., with Catherine trailing just behind him. Her presence was an anomaly, a breach of protocol that was instantly noted by everyone in the room, but his confidence was so absolute that no one dared to question it. She took a seat in one of the guest chairs against the wall, crossing her legs and surveying the room as if she already owned it. Another unexpected presence stood near the door. Hector Vargas, still in his simple gray maintenance uniform. A few executives exchanged puzzled glances, wondering what a janitor was doing in a top-level strategy meeting. He simply stood with his back to the wall, his hands clasped behind him, his expression placid and unreadable. The clock on the wall showed 3 p.m., and the room fell silent. The main doors at the far end of the room opened. A woman walked in. She wore a charcoal gray suit, impeccably tailored, and low heels that made almost no sound on the polished floor. Her hair, usually tied back in a simple bun, was down, falling in a dark, straight sheet to her shoulders. She carried a slim leather portfolio. It was Anna. Recognition did not dawn. It struck. Mr. Kwan's confident smile froze, then collapsed. The color drained from his face as his mind struggled to reconcile the two images: the anonymous barista from the lobby and Anna Park, the founder's notoriously brilliant and reclusive daughter, the woman who had once personally overseen the hostile takeover of their largest European competitor. A wave of comprehension washed over the room, a silent, collective recalibration of reality. Catherine stared, her mouth slightly agape, the condescending smirk wiped from her face, replaced by a dawning, sickening horror. Anna walked to the head of the table, the seat reserved for the chairman, and placed her portfolio down. She looked out at the assembled executives, her gaze sweeping over them before it finally came to rest on Mr. Kwan. "Good afternoon," Anna began, her voice the same calm, even tone she used when asking someone if they wanted room for cream. It was a voice that held the room in absolute thrall. "We are here to finalize the leadership for our new North American division. This is the single largest investment in the company's history. The person who leads it will not only be a manager but a steward of our corporate culture." She paused, letting the words settle. "Leadership, we believe, is not demonstrated in reports or profit margins. It is demonstrated in character." She gestured to the large screen behind her, which flickered to life. There was no sound, only crisp, high-definition video. It was a view from behind the counter of the daily grind, a perspective no one had ever seen. The first clip showed Catherine's initial visit, her dismissive tone, and Mr. Kwan's silent acquiescence. The camera angle made their sense of entitlement look small and ugly. The second clip showed the spilled coffee. It was clear from this vantage point that Catherine's stumble was an intentional, jerky movement. The footage then showed Hector, appearing from the side of the frame, cleaning the mess without a word. The final, longest clip showed the scene with David. It showed Catherine leaning over the counter, her face contorted in a sneer. It showed David shrinking back, his distress painfully obvious. And it showed Hector, stepping forward from the background, his quiet intervention a stark act of courage in a room full of silent bystanders. Anna let the video play out in its entirety. The only sounds in the boardroom were the hum of the projector and the increasingly ragged sound of Mr. Kwan's breathing. "For 3 weeks," Anna said, as the screen went dark, "I have had the privilege of serving you coffee. And in that time, I have seen the true culture of this building. I have seen casual cruelty, and I have seen quiet dignity. I have seen ambition that is blind to indecency, and I have seen integrity in a man who pushes a mop." She picked up a single sheet of paper from her portfolio. Her eyes found Mr. Kwan's. "We look for leaders who build people up, not people who stand by while others are torn down." The consequences were delivered with the precision of a surgeon. There was no anger in Anna's voice, only a final, immutable clarity. "Mr. Kwan," she said, her gaze unwavering, "your professional accomplishments are significant. They are not, however, sufficient. Your candidacy for the directorship of the North American division is hereby withdrawn." A tremor went through him, a barely perceptible shudder. "Your complicity in the behavior we have just witnessed demonstrates a fundamental misalignment with the core values of this company. You are being reassigned. Effective tomorrow, you will be the lead auditor for our operations in Anchorage, Alaska. You will report to the regional manager there." The silence that followed was absolute. The sentence was a corporate death knell, a banishment to the farthest, coldest corner of the empire. Then she turned her attention to the woman against the wall. "Catherine," she said, using her first name with a chilling familiarity. "You are not an employee of this company. You are a guest in this building. Your access privileges are revoked. Security will now escort you from the premises." 2 uniformed guards, who had been standing discreetly outside the door, entered the room. Catherine stood, her face a mask of white-hot fury and disbelief, but she did not speak. She allowed herself to be led out, her final act in the building a walk of silent shame. Anna then looked down the table to where David, the young intern, had been asked to sit, tucked away in a corner. "David," she said, and he flinched as if struck. "You were subjected to unprofessional and abusive behavior. On behalf of K Global, I apologize. You will also be receiving a formal offer to join our executive development program with a full scholarship to complete your MBA. We believe you have potential." Finally, her gaze moved to the man by the door. Mr. Hector Vargas. Hector stood a little straighter. "For 20 years, you have served this company with honor and quiet dignity. You have demonstrated more leadership in one moment with a polishing cloth than some executives demonstrate in a lifetime. We are creating a new position, reporting directly to my office, Director of Workplace Culture and Employee Welfare. Your sole responsibility will be to ensure that every single employee in this building, from the sub-basement to this boardroom, is treated with the respect they deserve. The position is yours, if you will accept it." Hector Vargas looked at Anna Park, and for the first time in 20 years of service, he allowed a small, slow smile to grace his lips. He simply nodded. The boardroom emptied slowly, the executives filing out in a state of quiet shock, their understanding of the world having been fundamentally altered. Mr. Kwan was the last of them to leave, a man hollowed out, his ambition a ghost that now haunted his vacant eyes. Soon, only two people remained under the soft glow of the recessed lighting, Anna and David. The young intern had not moved from his chair. He stared at the polished marble of the table, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "I don't understand," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. He looked up at her, his expression a mixture of gratitude and confusion. "I didn't do anything. When she was yelling at me, just stood there. I let it happen." Anna walked over from the head of the table and sat in the chair next to his. She looked not at him, but out at the sprawling city, now glittering with the first lights of evening. "You're right," she said. "You didn't do anything. And, in that moment, that was a failure. It's a failure of nerve that everyone in this room, at some point in their lives, has been guilty of. It is the most human failure of all." She turned her head to look at him, her eyes soft but clear. "But you knew it was wrong. I saw it on your face. You felt the injustice of it. That is a beginning." Mr. Kwan felt nothing. He saw only an inconvenience. "That is an ending." She stood and walked over to the small service bar at the side of the room. She picked up a simple ceramic mug and poured herself a black coffee from the carafe that had been set out for the meeting. "We are not looking for heroes, David. We are not looking for people who are never afraid. We are looking for people who can still tell the difference between right and wrong, even when they are scared. We are looking for people who learn from their failures." She held the simple mug in her hands, its warmth a familiar comfort. "Now," she said, taking a small sip, "you will have the power to act. Don't waste it." The coffee was strong and black. It tasted like a job well done.